on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
Welcome to Keeping It Real with Najeh Wilkins. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. We have a very special day in store for you guys. We're talking about all women's sports. So yes, there is a new kickoff, a new show every single Tuesday at 4 p.m. We might adjust the time a little bit. Going to see how convenient it is for coaches and if they're able to come on or not. But yes, every Tuesday we'll be talking about women's sports, girls sports throughout the state of Georgia. It's going to include everything, guys. It's going to include flag football, basketball, wrestling, swimming, lacrosse, girls soccer, anything you could think of, volleyball, softball, anything you could think of, we're going to talk about it on the show. Today in Tap, we're going to be talking about some basketball, some wrestling, and also a little bit of previewing the lacrosse season, which is actually right around the corner. Yes, guys, spring sports is basically here as the winter sports start to kind of dwindle down. The wrestling, basketball starting to dwindle down a little bit. Swimming state championships actually will be next week. We will start getting into spring sports. So I'm super excited for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But without further ado, first segment of the show, we're going to talk about a national basketball ranking. So I really want to talk about that with you guys. 3 teams in the state of Georgia are on this list. At number 1, they have Arship, Bishop, Mitty. That is, this list is from Max Preps. Number 2, Long Island Lutheran. 3, Montverde Academy. We know how good they are on the boys' side as well. They're 18-1 this season. At Wanda, Sidwell and Friends at 5, Sierra Canyon at 6, number 7, Bishop McNamara at 7, number 8 is Morris Catholic, number 9 is Grayson, yes, the Grayson Rams at number 9, and IMG Academy at 18-2. Grayson also did pick up 2 more wins this week. This is last week's list. I'm sure they're going to come out with their new list probably either tomorrow or on the 31st, so expect that list to come out soon. Number 11, they had Hebron Christian, another Georgia team who's having a very stellar season under their head coach. Number 12, Mansfield Timberview. 13, they had Lake Highland Prep. 14, Johnston. 15, Incarnate Wood Academy. 16, Putnam City West. 17, Thomasdale. 18, Clark out of Texas. Number 19, they had Minnetonka out of Minnesota. 20, DeSoto. 21, Duncanville, Texas. 22, George Rogers Clark. 23, Purcell Marion out of Ohio. 24, another Georgia team at Wesleyan, and 25, Nazareth Academy. So as I said, 3 major Georgia teams on this list. As we mentioned, number 11 was Hebron Christian, 24 was Wesleyan, and number 9 in the country was Grayson. So Grayson, as I mentioned, 21-0 on the season. If you guys go look at Craig's show, he previewed a little bit about the Hoops Classic that they had coming up a few weeks ago, that they played a really stellar team at IMG Academy, very highly rated. You see number 10. The national rankings, they have them moved up after getting that victory, but they beat them so far this year. They beat Wesleyan, who's another nationally ranked program, Panther Creek, South Shore, and also Norcross. All very notable wins, in-state, out-of-state, as you can see. But let's recap really quick after the rankings. Let's just talk about the biggest results in hoops for girls' side this past weekend. I think for me, got to be Buford beating Wesleyan 70-65. First off, shout out to Wesleyan, though, for just challenging themselves and playing a very tough schedule, and then playing a 7A contender, in my opinion, in the Buford Wolves, who's only lost 2 games this season. They lost in a narrow game for that one. In Wesleyan, Chazadeti Wright, she had 25 points, 6 assists, and 6 rebounds. She's going to be featured in another segment later. She's one of the top players in the country. We're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. Also had 3 more scores in double figures, including Ava Garbadian with 16 and Brianna Preston, who's going to Texas with 15 points. She's been impressive all season. As we know, she played for Lovejoy. She is now with Wesleyan, and she's doing a really, really good job. Makes them a very deep team. They're going to be one to watch when playoffs rolls around in a couple of weeks. And then for Buford, got Lydia Letford and Ava Grace Watson, both combining for 33 points in the first half. They had it going together, and they finished the game. Ledford finished with 20 points, and Watson had a team-high 24 points in that victory against Wesleyan. So big time for them to way to come up and play some really great basketball. And then some other news, you had Denmark basketball player Emma Hemker. She officially committed to Berry College. Some exciting news for her. She's been having a pretty good season for the Danes. She is officially committed to Berry, so I thought that was some cool news to share as well. But also, let's go ahead and look at some of the top players in the statistical category so far this season. Excuse me. So if you look at assists so far in the GHSA, you have Kiesha Henderson from Josie. She leads the state in 9.8 assists per game. Behind her is Jatiana Chambers. She is averaging 7.6. And then you have Amir Banks. She's also at that same figure. Cydia Dennis, she's averaging 7.2 assists. And then London Walker of Milton is averaging 7.0. So some of your best playmakers in the state do a lot of good things with the ball in their hands, good at feeding their teammates, getting them the ball, get them in their spots, and letting them get it going. These are the top ones in the state of Georgia. Now, as far as rebounds, you got Sequoia Harris from Martin Luther King. She's averaging 15.8 boards per game. So she's doing a really, really great job for their program. Marley Bell follows her out of Montgomery County with 15.7. Then Michaela Taylor out of Hughes. She has 15.1 so far this season. And then you have Alyssa Staten out of Statesboro with 14.8. And then Lyric Green of Dodge County with 14.8. So incredible numbers from all these players. Some of the tops in the state leading these categories. Also got scoring, which would be India Dennis of Creekside. Incredible stat line right here. 28.3 points per game for her. Shakiria Foster follows her out of Lamar County with 26.1. And then after her is going to be Nia Smith from Milton with 24.6 points per game. And then you got Keandra Cree from Monroe, 24.2 points per game. And then Amani Chambliss out of Chapel Hill with 23.9 points per game. And then if you go to the steals, last major statistical category, Tilasia Lattimore, she's averaging 6.3 steals per game. Alika Daugherty out of MLK, she's averaging 6.2 steals per game. Deasia Stinson out of Northgate, she's averaging 6 steals per game. And you have Nia Anderson, she's out of Columbia, she's averaging 5.7 steals per game. And then Kaylee Wooden of North Clayton is averaging 5.5 steals per game. So those are the statistical leaders. As I said, we are winding it down right now as far as basketball. I believe next week will be the last basically week of the regular season for the majority of the teams. That's what's going on right now in the state. I also wanted to look at another list, one of the best ones at actually covering the state. He came out with some power rankings, Sandy Spiel did, and I just want to react to it. Give me 1 second. So we talked about national, but let's look at the state. I think his rankings were pretty spot on. So let's find out. Okay, so he came out with a boys. We'll leave that for Thursday. But he came out with a girls power rankings, and I think this is a pretty cool thing to look at. Okay, so he did a top 20 basically in the state, regardless of classification, and we could talk about obviously each school. But number one, he has Grayson. Can't disagree with that. They got two phenomenal players on that roster. We'll talk about them a little bit. But Danielle Carnegie, and also have another guard that can fill it up. Then number two got Hebron Christian at 19-2 this season, having another incredible year. A really, really good program, can space the floor, can get it and dunk it down below. They could do a lot of different things well. And then number three, I think is really interesting too, is River Ridge. We got to see them. What I like about them, they play also a very tough schedule, and they're going to be battle tested. Craig had on their head coach Jason Taylor a few weeks ago. Go back and go look at that show that we have on our YouTube channel as well. You can go back and look at that. But I thought it was cool, the questions he was asking him. And then we got to see them at the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Basketball Classic as well. And what stood out to me is that they just have so many players that can beat you, right? Sophia Pearl, they got a sophomore as well. She is able to do a lot of big things well. Got a really impressive freshman. Actually, I got to pull. I'm not doing their roster justice, but I got to pull up their stats really quick because I know I'm missing names.
54 straight region victories.
As Craig just pointed out, a really great stat line. 54 straight region victories Really appreciate him pointing that out. But yes, I gotta pull up just so you guys know. I mean, the team is absolutely loaded. And the crazy thing is, as Craig mentioned at the show, he said this got a potential chance to be a dynasty, and I don't disagree. Like, last year they had a very senior-laden team, but I thought they had the best starting five when you throw them out there. Now you look at this year, you still got young pieces in, and you still got a little bit of an upperclassman. So upperclassman-wise for them, you got Kayla Cleveland. She's averaging 14.2 points per game with 7 rebounds as a junior, right? Then you got Sophia Pearl. She's like kind of your knockdown shooter, can get to different spots on the floor, shoots it very efficiently. She's averaging 13.5 points per game, also with 5 assists. Then the really impressive one for me is Michaela Roberson. She ended up winning our player of the game when they beat Brookwood when we televised it on TV. She's averaging 13 so far this year, 4 boards, 4 assists. You know, she's just one of those players, you know, she can beat you with the ball in her hands or with it not being in her hands. Her cutting ability is next level. Her ability to knock it down when she's open, the ability to hit contested tough shots as well. She's a very fun player. And the one that really always has stood out to me is Finley Parker. I thought her game, her being one of the taller forwards on the floor as a freshman, getting a lot of playing time. She's 4th on the team in scoring with 11 points per game and 5.5 rebounds. So when you look at all that, they have one of the better rosters that you look at in the state. So this is the reason why they're number 3 on this list. And also can't forget Ali Sweet as well, 7.8 points per game. But they just do a lot of things well, and I think Coach Jason Taylor really expects a lot of them. I remember talking to him probably like last year when I started my show initially, and he was like, well, we look for a certain figure, a certain number from that three-point line. I think it was about 35, 36%. And I wonder if the team is meeting that this year. But he does a great job of getting the most out of his group, and it's the reason why they're so high on so many rankings, and that's definitely one of the reasons why. Then number 4 is Buford. We're going to talk about them in a little bit as well as being maybe in Najeh's top 5, like just headlines, but maybe being a contender potentially to Grayson. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but they're 19-2 this year. Number 5 is Wesleyan. They're 16-3, having a really good year. Then number 6, he has St. Francis at a 15-7 record so far. Number 7 is Baldwin, and Craig brought up a great point in the show so far this week. About Baldwin. They played in the Corky Kell, and that's what's so cool about when you see early basketball, right? You can't really judge it. You know, you have to take it with I'm trying to think of the analogy you would say. You have to take it with a grain of salt, right? You can't buy totally into what you see in December and November basketball, right? Because the team hasn't really reached its full capacity to me yet, or its full capabilities, right? They're still figuring each other out. Sometimes you have new players starting in new roles, right? Everybody's trying to get acclimated with each other. Sometimes you got freshmen coming in and sophomores coming in. So I think all that definitely matters when you're looking at basketball. And the reason I bring that up is Baldwin didn't look their best against Norcross, right? They did battle and compete and made runs in that game and got back to it. But we were asking, okay, outside of Janae Walker and her backcourt mate, who else was going to be a step up for the team? Who were going to be the shooters? And then when you look at this team so far this year, they have not lost since then. I think that is an incredible stat to see and to see what the program is actually doing, right? They're 19-2 so far this year. They're 10-0 in their region, Region 2 and 4A. So they're doing an incredible job, and we know how good Madison Ruff is. She recently committed back in December. We know how good Cassidy Neal, is as well. But we was wondering what some other players would step up, and they're stepping up, right? The Pascals, the Williams, right? They're hitting down these big shots, and it's the reasons why they have not lost since losing to Norcross back then in December. I mean, that has been crucial for them, and the reason why they're so high is definitely a year for them that they can be able to contend and win it all. Number 8, he has Union Grove at 22-1, having a really good year, only 1 loss all season. Then Mount Parent at number 9 at 17-3, and in Carrollton, a really underrated group, 20-2 so far this year though. Another really, really good team out in 7A. Only 2 losses was to McEachern and Grayson, but I like what they're able to do. Some of their players I've seen recently in January, they were power cleaning, right, hitting new PRs at that. So I like what the program does. I mean, obviously you know how much they're known for boys basketball and also football, but I think they do a good job of training their athletes, getting them to play their peak capabilities, and really getting the most out of their players. And I think you see that. They're going to be interesting. I know they're going to have something to say before the end of the year is over. And the slept-on team, I think, as well, that's North Forsyth. They are 22-0 so far this season out of 6A. I'd be interested to see what kind of run that they can go on so far this year. But they are knocking it out the box, 22-0 record. I mean, it's going to be interesting. We know 6A obviously is going to have Marist, who follows them right after that. But yeah, 22-0. They're 9-0 in their region so far, and they've been beating some pretty decent teams. So shout out to them. They're going to be interesting to watch. But Marist is at 12 at 19-1. We know how good they are. Kate Harpring, she's having another exceptional season, for the War Eagles, and they sit right there at number 12. Number 13 got Langston Hughes at 16-4. They're having another stellar season at 13. And then McEachern, as we mentioned, don't have the best record, but you see the stellar top competition they've played. They're 14-9. We've seen them beat some pretty marquee teams, as we mentioned. Already beaten Carrollton. So they got some good resume building wins. Like if we were doing a resume, kind of how you look at teams when you do the NCAA bracket, like you would be like, okay, McEachern doesn't have the best record, but their resume speaks a lot. Their strength of schedule. Like those are things you would look at for them and why they're so high on this power rankings list. Then 15, you got North Paulding at 17-5. Also having another good season out in 7A. And then 16, New Manchester at 15-4. Having a really, really good year. And then Norcross at 17-5. I think it's a dangerous team. I'm going to share my thoughts a little bit more on them later. But again, we got to see them. And I think what makes them potent is they got a guard that they can just get the ball to at any point in the game, and she can go get a bucket, right? She's going to Mercer, Janiyah Akins. Like, that's valuable come playoff time. When you have a guard that you just get the ball to, she can go fill it up, hit a three, or she can drive to the paint or the basket. She can finish through traffic. She can hit from the mid-range. All those things matter, man. So when you have that kind of guard and that kind of play, it definitely stands out. And then number 18 is Maynard Jackson at 18-1. Campbell at 19 at 15-7. And then you got Milton at 18-2. So those are the girls' power rankings. I wanted to point that out. I think he did a really good job of including all classifications and how they've been having a really, really good season. And then to conclude this segment, before we move on, a pretty cool story right here from Dennis Knight out of Savannah Morning News about Jackie Hamilton after she stepped down from Calvary's Day basketball team. Had a really great run last year. They were in the Final Four. She was an 18-year veteran for the program. She handed it over to Daniel Jackson. Jackson was an assistant coach with their program for 8+ years before taking over this season. Calvary Day still playing well. They had a really big game this past weekend. They rallied from a 15-point deficit to knock off Johnson 52-47, and they beat Beach also 50-45 that Saturday. So far, Calvary Day probably a little underrated in most rankings. They're 15-4 so far this year, 11-1 in region play. So shout out to them. That's not easy to do, to transition from a voice you're familiar with, a voice that you know and you trust, to a new voice and still be able to play at a high level, 15-4, and then contention for a region championship and a region title after having a Final Four season. So a really shout out to them. Only region loss came earlier in a really close game against Savannah Country Day on January 12th, 46-44 in a close game. So just wanted to give him definitely a special shout out for what he's been able to do with that program. That is not easy to do in your first year, have them playing at such a high level after, having what they had before. So shout out to him. But that's all we got for the first segment. We are going to go ahead and thank our sponsors and be back on the other side for the second segment, break down some wrestling and also some swimming.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Absolutely. She can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
All right, guys, welcome back. So we're going to talk about Carrollton winning the dual state championship. Go a little bit over the numbers. I'm not going to regurgitate what was said yesterday, but great interview by Craig. On Monday, he had the head coach on from Carrollton as they won the dual state championship as well. So we're going to go over those numbers and then preview a little bit their next season kind of coming up. in the traditional setting and format. That's right around the corner. But go look at that interview. That's up on the YouTube page. Very, very good interview with the head coach, Alan Newton of Carrollton Wrestling. So they got a 49-27 victory against Greenbrier in the championship match, successfully defeated. They defended their original state championship, so now they have two-peated in the duels for the team girls at West Georgia on Saturday. In the championship match, Trojans was led by Haley Lucier, 235 pounds, and Gabby Carnes, 110 pounds. Isabella Moore, 120, Bailey Moore, 130, Maggie Dudley, 135, Madison Cooley, 140, Johanna Mejia, 145, Sierra Lopez, 120, and then Journey Gray, 190, each securing victories. As you can see, guys, with the picture right here is them winning the dual state championship. A very nice picture, courtesy of GHSA Sports. As you can see, them winning it in West Georgia. That is the official photo. A little bit about a runner-up, Greenbrier. They opened the tournament with a 69-9 victory over Putnam County, and then they beat Lumpkin County 51-27. Wolfpack defeated Jordan 42-33 in the semifinals to earn a berth in the championship game against Carrollton. And then as far as in the consolation bracket, Gainesville narrowly defeated Glimmer 42-40 to secure a third-place finish. The Red Elephants opened up the tournament with the victory over Richmond Hill 57-24, but lost to Carrollton in the second round 54-30. Gainesville then beat Houston County 54-27. And Chestatee 54-30 and Jordan 39-38 to secure a berth in the third/fourth matchup against Glimmer. In the inaugural event last year, the girls featured an 8-team bracket before expanding to 16 teams this season, matching the size of the boys bracket. So I thought that was pretty cool, man. Those results, the sport is actually expanding, so that's always a good thing to see, expanding from 8 to 16 and only after having their inaugural season. So I think that says a lot about what they're doing. And as the coach mentioned, Coach Newton mentioned, they are going to be having a traditional state tournament matchup pretty soon here. I think they're going to have a little bit of a lapse but they're going to pick up in another couple of weeks as well, and then they're going to compete for a title. What you got, Craig?
Quick note. So last year was the first year the traditionals. Chesapeake came in first, Carrollton came in second, but Chesapeake had to forfeit. They lost their appeal, so this will be the first ever traditional champion this year.
So Craig brought up a great point. I'm gonna try to see if I memorize it all, but basically said last year was the first year for the traditional, but Chestatee ended up beating Carrollton, but they forfeited that their championship. So basically, this will be the first year, and Carrollton was actually second. This will actually be the first year that we will have a traditional champion in the girls' sport. So I think that's pretty incredible. Chestatee, as we just talked about, had a pretty good run so far in the duel. So they'll be right back at it, competing in a couple of weeks. So let's see who comes out on top. You will have the full coverage here, and we will recap and react to those stats. Thank you, Craig, for the graphic as well, and for the information. Thank you so much. That definitely helped out. But let's keep it going. We got some swimming news and updates. State championship guys up on scoreatl.com, so definitely go check that out. Put together by Max. Did a really incredible job, including the biggest storylines for the boys' side. I think Walton was the first time they got in a long time into the state championships, I believe. And they have really good swimmers over there from what I've seen from the article. So go check that out on scoreatl.com, state championship guide for swimming. But it's right around the corner. Diving championships will take place actually the following week, actually next week on February 6th. The swimming will take place on February 7th, and will pick back up on February 9th and the 10th. So I think that is pretty cool. Wesleyan actually had a 5-year dynasty before being upended. I'm sorry, I got that stat wrong. Hold on, guys. Okay, give me one sec, guys. I was about to say a stat, but I think I was going to say it wrong. Okay, so yes, I had put Wesleyan twice in my notes, so forgive me. Actually, Westminster had a 5-year dynasty that they were building before being upended by Wesleyan last year in the swimming state championships. So that's going to be a note to watch as well. I wanted to give some love also to Virginia commit Katie Christopherson. She led Westminster to a Metro Meet win this previous week. She's the number 12 recruit in the class of 2024 in the country. In this latest event that she won it in the 100 breaststroke and the 200 individual medley in the final meet before the GHSA state championship, as we know, is upcoming next week. Her times, she easily won both of the individual events, punching a time of 1:58.33 in the 200 individual medley and then 1:02.51 in the 100 breast. Also in that event, in the 200 medley, you had Sadie Clinton coming out on top, 28:17. Christopherson trailed her with a 28:96 time. Greta Myers with a 25:67 time. Lauren Fogelsong with a 25:77 time, combined for 1:48.57, finishing nearly 3 seconds ahead of their runner-ups. And then Christopherson's breaststroke split was the fastest in the field for her, so shout out to her once again. Just continuing to break records in her incredible tenure with her team at Westminster. And then the 400 relay, Myers, she had 52.75. Carolyn Anderson, she has 56:10 time. And then Ansley Segrosso, 55:77. And then Christopherson, 49:84. Once again, top the field, 3:44.46. This time by over 4 seconds. Other swimming news from the last major meet before going on. While Westminster, they won the 200 medley and 400 free relays. Got to give a shout out to Midtown High School freshman Sarah Paisley Owen of Midtown. Some monster splits to lift her team to podium finishes. After the butterfly leg, Midtown was trailing in 4th place behind Westminster, Marist, Lovett. But then Owen, she scorched with a 21:88 time to bring her team into 2nd overall at 1:51.43. That appears to be the fastest relay performance of her career. So shout out to her doing it when you got to do it most at this point of the season, towards the end as a freshman, coming up big for her team. Needless to say, the split led the field, by a significant margin. No other anchor swimmer broke 25 seconds. And in the 400 free, Owen dropped another field best split of 48.94 as Midtown finished 3rd overall. 3:38.94 was the time, just 4/10 behind 2nd place Marist. So shout out to Sarah Paisley Owen of Midtown High School, coming up big for her team, getting them up on the podium and being able to have these really great finishes after they were trailing in a lot of the meet. Owen also swept her individual events, swimming 1:52.72 in the 200 free and 50:02 in the 100 free to win by over 3 seconds in both. Her best time was 49:48 in the 100 free ranks. It ranks her 23rd all time amongst 13 to 14-year-old girls, though she recently aged up to 15, 16 age group. So shout out to her having an incredible run, obviously, for her team and doing what she's supposed to do. So shout out to her. Really incredible meet. Again, swimming championships coming up next week. All right, so I did want to shout out a couple teams, top 5 teams from girls, results from that meet, as well as Westminster at 177.5, Marist at 163, Midtown, as we mentioned, having a really great showing, 113, Riverwood 101, and then Blessed Trinity at 97. So names to kind of know as the state championships kind of roll around, coming up on some really, really good teams. Individuals so far just leading. You can go to swimcloud.com. They have all the top, basically, teams, top swimmers, just best players from the sport itself. So on the girls' side, you got Katie Christopherson, as we mentioned earlier, the Virginia commit from Westminster. She has a total of 773.73 points. Then at number 2, you have Abigail Heiser from Great Atlanta Christian. She has 721.85 points so far. And then number 3, Emma Reiser of North Gwinnett High School, 706.86 points so far this season. Number 4, as we just mentioned, having a stellar freshman year. As we just mentioned, what she did in the meet as a freshman, Midtown High School, she has the 4th highest points in the state. That is incredible. 704.08. She's having quite the coming out party. Shout out to her once again. And then number 5 was Allie Donker of Marist School with 649 points. So shout out to all the athletes that are on this really, really incredible list of teams playing really, really, really well. So that was number 4 and number 5. And then as far as just the best girl teams in the state, Got some really good teams. Obviously, they're going to be all competing for state championships next week. But number 1, Westminster. We know why. Katie Christensen in the group playing at a high level. And then number 2, North Gwinnett, 559.24 points this season. Number 3, Greater Atlanta Christian, 552.67. Number 4, Marist, 549.38 points so far this year. And then you got Cambridge, who is sitting at 510.33 points so far this year. So doing a really, really good job. All the teams so far. Some of the top points coming from the Marist School. Obviously, in the 100 free, you got Abigail Jacob. She had a really good time in the 53rd Metro Championship. 53.71 was her posted time. That helped them out a lot. Caroline Schaefer, she had a really good time of 55.82 also in the 100 free. In the 200 free, you had Caroline Schaefer also having a really good time, 156.13. And then Lauren Polly also having a 2:04.6 time. So some of those key results for Marist sitting at the top. We'll look at one more school, Westminster, just some of the top results from just so far this season. In the region rankings, they're number 1. As we all know, some of their top, times so far this year. Ansley Segrosa, as we mentioned earlier, 25.18 in the Metro Championship. Sadie Clayton was 25.20. And then you had Phoebe Clayton. She had a really good time at the 30th Annual McCallie Invitational in Tennessee, 5:39.03. And then 100 backstroke had Sadie P. Clayton with a minute 20, and then Courtney Miller with a 1:07.7 time as well. So those are some of the top teams. Those are who to watch so far this weekend. Just some really, really good athletes so far in the sport. I think I seen one more major thing I wanted to point out before we take another commercial. Okay, there's one more sport I wanted to highlight. It is on the girls' side. I know it's starting up in just a little bit, but I guess we can look at just the spring a little bit. I'm not sure if they started their season early. I do see some stats already far as Lowndes, so I think they have already started their season so far. Yeah, it looks that way. It looks like Lowndes is the first team to play so far this season, already having a game in January. They played January 6th. They beat Ware County 9-2. So shout out to them. Really great win for them. And apparently looks like one of their attackers definitely went off in this game. They had 3 players with a brace in this one. Allie Thomas, sophomore, she had 2 goals in that game. Amelia Gregory, their senior, had 2 goals as well, also a brace. Lucy Longshore also had a brace in this game. And then Yarborough also got on the scoring as well. And then Strasburg also scored in a goal. And then Darty as well had a goal. So it looks like Lowndes has already started their schedule up. They're 1-0 beating Ware County. Their next matchup will be against Pierce County actually next week, I believe on February 6th. Let me get that and confirm that for you guys real quick. That would be next Tuesday. They'll be playing against Pierce County, and then they'll come up to the Gwinnett area and play Collins Hill, followed by North Gwinnett. So that is their schedule so far, 1-0. Incredible start to the season, 9-2, as you guys know. The seasons are starting up. Lacrosse is right around the corner. We're going to talk about that in the final segment of the show today. And then, as you guys know, soccer is on the way as well. About to start up here very, 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 very soon. But, yeah, so far, the leader right now is Lucy Longshore of Lounge. She has 7 points so far this season, 2 goals and 3 assists. So, really incredible job by her. Then Amelia Gregory, she had 2 goals, as we mentioned. So, the main one on this list will be Lowndes until the other teams come, and obviously they play. But I did want to give a shout out to the Fall League, some of the top players. Katie Norris of Manchester, Ohio, Lilia Calvert of Abington Heights, and then Kayla Kiefer of Central Columbia. She had 146 points this past season. Sophia Sindelar, she had 137, and then Tessa Knapp had 133. So as you guys know, in GHSA, we do not have a fall league. We have just a spring league. So just wanted to give them a shout out. But Lowndes did win their first game emphatically. Believe we'll have rankings here pretty soon on Score ATL, probably the next couple of weeks, because soccer season is here. And last year we had a really incredible player. Craig, who was that player from Chambly? I believe she played on the World Cup team from Jamaica, I believe. Yeah, Craig's looking it up. Yeah, got to give her a shout out as well. She had a really good year.
She scored like 8 goals in the playoffs in a game.
Yeah, and then I think they finally ended up winning their state championship.
Yes, that was. Was that Sophia Wilson?
I think so. We're gonna have to double check for sure. Let's see, Chambly. Okay, Salai Washington found it. On 11 Alive, as we mentioned. Great point out by Craig, but 17-year-old rising senior was Georgia's Player of the Year this past season. She represented Jamaica in the Women's World Cup, as we know, was played this past summer. Fresh off scoring 4 goals in their state championship victory. That was 9-0. She took the next step in her journey from Chambly High, playing in the World Cup. I'm sure that was a lot of fun for her. Actually got a little bit of playing time as well. She made her debut that Sunday in Sydney for Jamaica. So she represented them in the 2023 World Cup. I thought that was a pretty awesome story, a really great talent. And guess what? She is committed to go to Duke University, one of the top soccer programs in the country. And last school year, she was named, as we talked about, Georgia State Player of the Year. Go to 11alive.com and get the full story there. But wanted to give her some love. I know Craig pointed out her a lot on his show last year, just about one of the top players. I think he even had their coach on potentially as well, if I'm not mistaken. So wanted to give her a special shout out. Can't wait for soccer. We'll be covering it here on the show every Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
They were number 1 in the nation at the end of the year.
There you go, Craig. Another good point. Number 1 ranked nationally in the country after their state championship win. And as you see what she was able to do off the pitch as well. So that's all we got for this segment. We're going to thank our sponsors and conclude the show with Najeh's top 5 going into tomorrow.
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me. Can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands, improper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, guys. So I know you guys watched the show on Thursday. You know how I have a top 10 headlines for the weekend that I really like to do. So my final segment for the girls' sports will be Najeh's top 5, just biggest news, storyline stuff I want to talk about going on in women's sports. Probably be a little bit of a mix. Probably a little bit about college basketball players that are going on and having really great careers that were formerly Georgia players. And then, just really, really exciting news going on in women's sports that is, really growing. That's going to be number 3 on this list, actually. We're going to talk about a sport that's really gaining some traction and attention and that really has a bright future ahead of it. So that's what the segment is going to be about, all those fun things as well. And I'll be covering that on Najeh's Top 5. So, number 1, I think, and I mentioned it earlier in the show, I've kind of hinted at it, will anybody be able to give Grayson a run for their money? Grayson basketball team, as you mentioned, 21-0, already has staple wins on their schedule, all right? The IMG Academies, right? The Norcrosses of the world, beating out-of-state talent, you know, having one of the best teams in the state, Daniel Carnegie, really top players, you know, but will this be a postseason of dominance for them, or will somebody come in and make it tough for them? And as we mentioned, some of the contenders I talked about in those power rankings with Sandy, I think Buford at 19-2, they're going to have a really good team. Watch out for Ava Watson. She's a very highly ranked player. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. But they're 19-2. They have a really good team. I believe their coach is Gene Durden. They do a lot of stuff well. Carrollton 20-2, as I mentioned, I was on their social media and was really impressed with just how they train, right? They train like they're, you know, about to go out in the field, like they're about to, you know, it's just different. Like sometimes you see training and you'll see like different things, but they really take it seriously. They're power cleaning in there. They're doing a bunch of different cardio workouts. They have a whole, you know, looks like facility and spot for them to work out. I just love seeing stuff like that. So they're having an incredible season, 20-2, 2 losses to McEachern, as we mentioned, and obviously Buford. But they're having a really, really, really strong, or Grayson, excuse me, it was the team they lost to, having a really strong season. They're going to be an interesting story to watch as the playoffs start to ramp up. I believe they'll probably end up getting their region tournament 1 seed. They'll probably end up winning a region championship, which is no small slight. They are going to be a team to watch. And then Norcross, right? We talked about them. I mentioned a little bit about Janai Atkins and her having the ability to go get you a bucket and to be clutch and just man your whole offense. Talked to their coach back in December, and she talked about how she was excited for her to take the step forward as a leader for the team, right? And, you know, she felt like sometimes, like, you know, in years past, she would kind of, you know, go off of, you know, other players, or she wasn't as vocal as she probably wanted her to be, right? She would just play. Her play would do the talking. But this year, taking that vocal leadership, very, very serious. And they got some really great players, right? They obviously got Kate Seide, who I think is a really great sniper and shooter. I think on playoff time, when you get a great player like a Janai Atkins, you need somebody to space the floor, right? When she getting double teams in the front court, or she getting double teams on the 3-point line, you're going to need your shooters to hit down shots. Then it's going to make the defense think twice. Okay, hey, should we really double team her? And they're going to be like, oh, well, no, she got snipers, she got shooters, or other players that can score. And they also have a really good front court presence as well, players that can finish in the paint with ease. So that's going to be something to watch, and I like how they can match up defensively. When you go back and look at the Baldwin game, they're going up against some of the marquee talents in the state, I think, is Janae Walker and Cassidy Neal. But they were able to put ball pressure on them. They were able to make them turn over the basketball. They were able to make them take tough contested jump shots. All those things matter. When you're able to do that, that makes you a contender, I think, in my eyes, in order to play up against some of these greater teams like a Grayson and a Buford and a Carrollton. So I know a lot of people, you know, they did make the power rankings. They're not national team, but I think Norcross does have a puncher's chance come playoffs. They got to really get great head coach as well. I know she's going to have them ready to go. And I think they got some really good pieces, man, where don't be surprised they upset one of these big contenders potentially in the playoffs. They, year in, year out, they're very good. And last year they came up a little bit short, but they made it to the state championship, just unfortunately lost to a really good Brookwood team. When you look at it, you're like, well, yeah, this was their time. Like, if they were going to win a title, I feel like you see that a lot. You see that in the NFL. You see that in football. Like, you'd be like, well, if this is your time to win a title, this got to be the year. Like, you feel that way about probably Baltimore when we talked about our show earlier. Like, if they were going to win a title, this was going to be the year to do it. And that's how it felt last year for the Brookwood girls. Juan's another one. Yeah, Craig mentioned as well. Like, they had so much great talent, and it's like, this got to be the year they win. And it's unfortunate sometimes teams don't do it, and sometimes teams capitalize. But Brookwood did. They're going to be a fun storyline, obviously, to watch Norcross this offseason. But then number 2, I think the biggest storyline heading into the swimming state championships is we know how good she is swimming-wise. We mentioned about her 200 time, her individual medley time. But Katie Christensen, the UVA commit, what she's going to be able to do in the state championships, I think she can put a stamp and cement her legacy of, you know, how great she really is. She's already done a lot of great things well, but you go out with state championships and add more stuff onto your resume of already great stuff that you're doing. I think she will be able to do that in these state championships. And if she balls out and has those, you know, those big numbers and being able to beat the field and beat the time, I think she's going to be able to cement her legacy as one of the best swimmers to come through the state. So these are the final swimming meets coming up. We mentioned about what happened last week. Obviously, she will be able to cement that, I think, this weekend or next weekend, excuse me, when it is the state championships and when she's swimming in Atlanta. So I think that's going to be big, man. That's going to be a storyline for me to watch, especially next week, and what she's able to do for her Westminster program. And you got to think they're thinking, okay, well, we won 4 to 5 straight state championships, and Wesleyan knocks us off, right? And it's like, well, okay, this is my senior year, and this is why I bring this up as a top storyline. This is my senior year. I've already shown I'm one of the better swimmers in the state of Georgia or even in the country. Now I get a chance to prove it one last time, one last final straw, in order to show that I can do this, and also get a little bit of revenge on the team that beat us last year up on the podium. I think that's big time. That's going to be something to watch. Got to give her a shout out. She's going to be an interesting storyline to watch next week for Westminster. Number 3, this is just women's sports in general. As I mentioned, with my top 5 headlines, I'm just going to mention like certain things that's popping in the sport, things that are popping just around the country in women's sports. I mean, that's the whole point, just to mention, like, because obviously you play great in high school, which is good, and then that sets up your opportunity to go to college, right? And then after college, you play great. That sets up your opportunity to do whatever else is next in your life. And I think we got to point out, too, sometimes girls' sports or women's sports, they don't always have that second, or I won't say second, they always have that third option, right? Usually there'll be a college you can go to, right? Whether that's volleyball or whether that's softball, and I think flag football is becoming more apparent now, and now more schools are offering those type of scholarships for girls. Basketball, definitely, and things like that. But some of these sports, like, that's it. Once you do college, you probably do 3-4 years, which makes the experience that much greater, because you're able to enjoy those 3 to 4 years, in a program, learning the coach, improving and developing as a woman, and playing up to your top tier ability. But then that's it. A lot of them don't have that professional option, or if there is a professional option in the sport they want to continue to pursue, right, they have to go overseas. The cool thing, though, is like you see certain sports like basketball and soccer, or some of the name ones I would want to say, they have another option, right? They have the National Women's Soccer League that girls can go play in. USA, when they have the Women's World Cup, that you can play and still play after your college career is done. Basketball, for sure. After college career is done, you can play overseas, or you can play in the WNBA. So there's other options, which is great. But I want to give a shout out to this league and women's sports in general. A really great update. And this is going to be volleyball. So potential professional volleyball coming very, very soon. So one of the leagues is called the PVF. It's one of 3 U.S. women professional leagues now operating or planned for players who previously had no choice but to go overseas. As I just mentioned, a lot of sports, you have to go overseas in order to have a chance to continue your career. League One Volleyball is on track to launch in November. The 5 weeks Athletes Unlimited League recently wrapped up its 3rd season. So those are the 3 leagues. PVF is now officially operating. League One Volleyball on track to launch this in November, and then the 5 weeks recently wrapped up its 3rd season. So I think it's cool. Besides Atlanta and Omaha, PVF has teams in Columbus, Las Vegas, Orlando, San Diego, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. So probably advancing. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 7 teams so far. So again, you can see one of those things as we've seen in wrestling with GHSA and the duels, right? We've seen it rapidly expand. It goes from 8 to 16. So it'd be cool to see them go from maybe 7 to 10, something like that. So it's expanding. The start is well timed. And think about this, guys. The sport is growing in volleyball. The sport drew global attention this past August when the largest documented crowd for women's sporting event, 92,000 people showed up to see a perennial college power Nebraska play Omaha at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. More than 19,000 attended each of the 2 nights in the NCAA Final Four in Tampa, Florida. The national championship match was televised on ABC for the first time and attracted 1.7 million viewers. So that goes to show you the potential that the sport has. That goes to show you the potential that could be coming up for volleyball as well. And I think that's what's so cool about ESPN is we're starting to see them as well getting on things like this and providing coverage for these kind of events. So I think that's pretty cool. Also some big time investors in this, so I think this is big as well. Big names in their industries, in their fields, are investing into these things. Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, who I'm wearing right now, Joe Burrow, one of my favorite players in the league, he is an investor in it. Orlando Magic chairman Dan Devos, three-time Olympic beach volleyball gold medalist Kerry Walsh Jennings and multi-platinum recording artist Jason Derulo are among PVF team owners. So they're investing in the sport. They're owners. Also, other big-name investors in League One volleyball known as LOVB include basketball stars Candace Parker, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, tennis icon Billie Jean King, skiing star Lindsey Vonn, entertainers Amy Schumer and Chelsea Handler as well. LOVB franchises are owned by the league and have been announced in Atlanta, Houston, Omaha, Salt Lake City, and Madison, Wisconsin. And then the Athletes Unlimited League, co-founded by John Patricoff and Jonathan Soros, plays a 5-week season at one site with 44 players who rotate weekly among 4 teams and are paid a minimum of $10,000. I know that might not seem like a lot, but to have a 5-week season and to still get paid a minimum of $10,000, think about it, guys. You can go work your regular job and say, okay, hey, these 5 weeks I'm going to miss, whatever. I'll be back after that and go make $10,000. I think that's pretty cool. You're making basically $10,000 in less than 2 months. That's pretty dope, I think, in my opinion. And then the PVF players are under contract for a 24-match regular season and playoffs through May, and to be paid $60,000 with bonuses for individual and team performance. I think that's pretty cool. There's also revenue sharing. The league champions promised $1 million to divide among players and staff. Housing is provided along with other benefits. 2 players on each roster will live year-round in their market and be paid an additional $40,000 as ambassadors for their team. So really exciting news there for both the leagues. I think they're doing a great job paying the players, and being able to play in these seasons and still be able to make a livable wage. I think that is a pretty cool thing. And then the last thing, also possible to earn 6 figures overseas with the very best players making into the millions. So as you can see, the sport is growing. That's professional volleyball. Those are the 3 different leagues: LOVB, PVF, and Athletes Unlimited. So it is growing here in the States as well, and that's exciting to see. You don't have to go overseas to play a professional sport. So I wanted to give that a shout out. I think that's very cool news, especially for volleyball players that maybe want to play after playing in college and want to have that other option for themselves. I think that's a pretty cool stat. All right, number 4, taking a look at some of the top girls basketball players in the state and are pretty known around the country. So I had to give them a shout out. In 2024, we got 3 players. Actually 5 players, top in the country. This is the ESPNW rankings, top 100 players for girls basketball. Number 43 was Brianna Preston. We know what she's able to do. Really good handle, can finish around the rim through contact. Very good defensive player. No ball pressure is going to kind of stifle her. Doesn't matter what kind of pressure you apply. She's going to be able to do it. And as I said, she's on a nationally ranked program, number 24 in the country in Wesleyan, and she is currently committed to go to Texas. So shout out to her. She's number 43. Number 48 is Daniel Carnegie, as you mentioned earlier, having another phenomenal season, and she's headed to Georgia Tech. She's number 48 player in the country, playing at Grayson on a 21-0 team so far this year. As I said, looks like to be the favorite, but a couple of contenders I mentioned at number 1 that could potentially knock them off. And then at number 51, you have Ava Watson from Beaufort. She's going to be very fun to watch. She's rated as number 51 currently, and she's committed to Ohio State. So Ohio State could have a pretty good roster in the next couple of years. Also have Diana Collins, formerly of Brookwood. Beaufort so far 19-2. They are probably the biggest threat to Grayson so far this year. I would probably put them at number 2, or at number 1 right behind Grayson, and then I'll probably put Carrollton and then Norcross right under there. So she's been having an incredible season for the Wolves. She's going to be one to watch. And I think what makes Wesleyan so dangerous is that they don't just have just one player. As I mentioned about Akins, like when they try to double her and try to pull a lot of pressure on her, you got to be able to have other players you can get the ball to. I feel like that's what Wesleyan has and what makes them great. They have another really dynamic guard, Chastity Wright, as we mentioned earlier. She led them in scoring, and unfortunately they lost to Beaufort 70-65. But she's number 79 rated in the country. So she's like another guard that complements Brianna Preston, who's a little bit taller, but also has guard-like qualities. She complements her very, very well. She's also handed to Georgia Tech to join Daniel Carnegie. So they're going to be fun to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how those teams look come playoff time. That's the other player. And then Tiana Thompson from Galloway. We know they had a deep run last year. They are 4-1 right now in the region. She's the number 99 player in the country. Only 2 games left in the season for Galloway. She's been having another strong season, I believe, leading them in scoring. And then 2025, a player to know, Haley Swain. She's rated as the number 13 player in the country in the 25 class. She goes to Holly Innocence, a team that's very high. I've seen the rankings today, ranked as high as number 3. Holly Innocence is the Bears. They're 14-6, a 12-0 region record, one of the best teams in the state. She's a large reason why. She's the only ranked player in the state of Georgia, according to ESPNW. So I think that's pretty cool. That's a name to watch. And then the last two in the 26 class, the sophomores for this year, will be juniors next year. Isabella Ragone of Mill Creek, rated as the number 14 player in the class. Mill Creek is 15-5 so far this year, 5-2 in the region this season. Looks like they will be the number two seed, in the region tourney. As you guys know, they are in the same region as as Beaufort. Already lost to them twice, so probably headed to the region 2 seed in the tourney. And we'll see if they're able to make some noise and maybe kind of make up for those losses earlier to the season in Beaufort. But she is a very highly ranked player. And the last one, me and Craig know her very well. Kate Harpering, her brother is going to Georgia Tech. She's one of the top players in the country as well, rated as the number 21 player in the rankings for the 26 class. For ESPNW, she led Marist to an impressive 18-2 record, and she has an impressive slew of D1 offers. Go on and on and on. North Carolina, any school you can name up, she basically has. So those are the 2 ranked players in the 26 class. So watch out for them. They will be a lot of fun to watch. And number 5, to wrap up the show for today, top girls lacrosse players to watch this upcoming season. Have fun putting together this list. But for me, number 1 got to be Blythe Knowles. Led Pope to a second round last season. Will be a big part of their offense. And again, she's one of the best attackers in the sport. She's currently committed to Florida, class of 2025. She's a junior, so Florida doesn't just accept anybody. Definitely got to be a top player to get accepted by them. And she is number 1 player to watch next season. She'll be a bigger part of their offense going into this upcoming season, which is right around the corner. Number 2, Ruby Kelly of Decatur. Major playmaker for the Bulldogs last season. Was second in the state with 35 assists. So you talk about somebody that can create offense not only for herself but for others, can set up different chances on the break when you have those mismatches, those advantages, those 4-on-3s, those 5-on-4s. That's the player you want. She's great at creating shots and offense also for herself. So she's number 2. Got to get a look out for her. Number 3 for me is Malia Edmonds from Milton. I mean, I feel like you can't put together a top lacrosse player list if you don't include Milton in there and what they've done in their reign. 16, just a straight dynasty. 16 state championships, 6-peated so far. And I just think their coach, Coach Godby, we're going to try to have him on hopefully next week to talk a little bit about their season and who they have this year. But I think he does a good job of preparing his team, and he does that by their national schedule, right? And sometimes I feel like in football, and Craig knows this very well, we'll critique Cedar Grove because of their record, but year in, year out, they play a very tough schedule, and that is why they can go and beat up on a really good team in Savannah Christian, right, in football in the state championship. It's because they schedule so hard out of their region schedule, and that is what Milton does. Milton is scheduling some of the top programs in the country, in Maryland, in Tennessee. Doesn't matter. He doesn't care where they play. They want to play some of the top teams in the country and really take those hits early on, learn from them, and then that helps them be able to dominate come postseason time, and that is the reason why. So she is going to be one to watch. She is headed to Radford University, and I think she's going to have a big-time season for the Milton Eagles. Number 4, Reagan Flanagan of Lakeside. I had to give her some love. She was 3rd last year in the state in goals. She had 102 goals last year. That's getting it done. Not a heavily recruited player, but she will be one of the key returning starters next year and one of those key offensive pieces this upcoming season as a senior for the program. They're going to lean on her, I think, very, very heavily and going to kind of depend on her to create chances and opportunities for that offense. Has a really good pace to her game and is very hard to stop when she gets in scoring range. And the final name, Clark Hampton of Blessed Trinity. She led the Titans to their 3rd consecutive state championship and is also one of the better attackers in the state. She's also currently committed to go play for Florida the following year, a big-time player to watch. And I think her presence, she's going to have to be very good this year. We know Blessed Trinity has had, kind of similar to Milton, really good players come through the program. But, again, they're getting the most out of their players, and they're competing and contending for titles every single season. A really good head coach. And I think she's going to be the player offensively this year at attacker that they're going to need for her to step up big and kind of depend on if they want to be able to score goals and win games. So big-time player to watch. Let's see if they can repeat for their 4th consecutive title. But, guys, hope you enjoyed the show today. That's all I have on the girls' sports. We'll definitely try to have more guests on again. We might see the time, might tweak it a little bit, maybe 3:30 or something. Just going to see if this works good for coaches to come on, because I definitely want to get their insight into some of these sports I'm not as knowledgeable about. Like, I'm still learning the volleyballs. I know softball a little bit because my cousin played, but some of these sports like lacrosse, definitely want to get their perspective and their insight and kind of learn from them while analyzing and breaking down these sports. But that's all I got. Stay tuned for Craig's show tomorrow. Who you got on as a guest? Cass. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. So, Coach Gates, that's going to be an epic interview. Go check it out. Craig always does good. I think he's probably one of the – if you go look at any talk show in the state, I think Craig does the best job of getting some of the marquee just coaches on right after they, either get hired or they get a big job opportunity or they have a big win. Craig is phenomenal at that. So, stay tuned for that tomorrow at noon. Drive for GHSA State Title. That's all we got today. Thanks for tuning in to Keeping It Real with Najeh Wilkins, and we'll see you soon. Peace.